Hey everybody, welcome back to Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Patrick Healey, founder and president of Caliber Financial Partners. Um, it's great to talk to you, Patrick. I think something. I love talking about money and how people should think about money and their relationship with money. One of the things I see as a business coach is the variations of people's relationship with money. So I thought maybe we could start there. How does somebody evolve their relationship with money? And and what I mean by that is somebody who wants to make a lot of money, but is also very conscious. How can they be a conscious capitalist? How can they look at money? How can they go beyond what they believe their self-worth to be? How does that mindset start all about money?
Yeah, John, first of all, it's great to be with you as well. That's a different question for different people,
Yeah.
right? And how you define or how you incorporate money into your life. For a lot of people, a lot of my clients, it's a means to an end. It's a way for them to accomplish some of their life goals, whether those are philanthropic or travel or taking care of their children and educating them, et cetera. That generally is a means to an end for a lot of people, including my clients. It can be an emotional element for a lot of people. I try to guide clients through the investment process, the money management process, to put them in the best position to allow them to accomplish those goals. But I also have to caveat that by understanding what their goals are and making sure they're realistic in the first place.
Yeah.
Because you never want to get into a situation where you're taking on an excessive amount of risk, which generally makes people uncomfortable. And so that's something that I have to balance against.
Yeah, let's talk about the process for a minute. Today, and a lot of the things that you were just talking about are very kind of, I don't want to call them end of life, but at a different season of your life. Maybe you're 65, late 60s and 70s on. And so as we rewind that a little bit and talk about the process, I find that through people I talk to, a lot of the stuff that I read is that the average American has about $500 in their bank account savings. And so, as we're coming out of COVID and money struggles for many are very real, and even people who have means still have maybe higher expenses. How do you live and save to get to what you were just talking to, being able to do all of those things for your kids and your grandkids as you get older?
Right. It's an excellent question. And you're right. The statistics are pretty staggering in terms of the lack of savings among the vast majority of our population, and the fact that COVID really kind of put people back in terms of job suspensions or being laid off, or even some of the business owners having their income reduced as a result of shutdowns. It really is a sobering reminder that people do need to plan proactively and not trying to react to, obviously you can't really predict a pandemic, but more of an emergency and not being prepared for it. Clients go through different phases of their lives, right? When they're young, they're maybe focused more on saving to buy a house. As they put their children through school, they may be more focused, or the shift goes to helping them fund their higher education, which is incredibly expensive. I've been a very outspoken critic about the student loan industry and the cost of higher education.
So expensive.
But people get past that hurdle, so to speak, and then they can focus a bit more on their retirement if those life dynamics are involved in a particular client's situation, right? So
let's talk about the responsibility of learning and teaching yourself things about money, right? So for depending on the person, you were either raised a lot, a little, or medium on money, right? So you either had those conversations around the dinner table or you didn't. And regardless of the level of discussion, what's the responsibility for someone to learn about money? I think for me, I like to spend 3 to 5 minutes a day minimum on the topic that I don't understand, so I can at least learn a little bit. So when I walk into a room with a wealth advisor or whomever, I at least can have a fundamental understanding of what I think is going on. And so, can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so I had the benefit growing up of having my parents instill, financial, discipline in my early life, and I certainly took a natural interest in it and progressed to a profession. But not everybody has that luxury or that situation in their lives, and I think it's incumbent upon each individual to really have a thirst for knowledge, but also these schools, not just higher education, but elementary and high school, really to form the basis for people to understand even the basics of opening a checking account, knowing how to deposit money, knowing how to save, because that's not intuitive with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredibly important to instill that base early on in their life cycle, just like you would learn any other subject in school. And I think it becomes a lot easier to progress and become proficient at it as you get older in life and you're facing bigger financial challenges.
Yeah. And I think it's harder today. I'm 49, and I think it's harder today for people than it was for generations, beyond my generation. But I think it's harder for the younger generations because there's more instant gratification. It's delayed gratification is not like it was, when I was a kid. I'm not sure how old you are, but to me, it was like you had to wait for certain things. And today you don't really have to. I want to talk about your parents. You shared that they instilled certain things. What were some of the, as you look back in hindsight, some of the lessons they taught you directly or just through watching them that kind of helped shape who you are and help shape the career you're in today?
Sure. So I have two sisters that were fairly close in age, and so our parents raised the three of us and put us through school, kind of block and tackling. My dad was working full time. He is to this day, but he also went to graduate school at night. And so, making that sacrifice, my mom having to stay at home and take care of us when we were young before we could go to school, really kind of sharing the burden and trying to provide a better life for us by my dad going through, as I said, higher education. He's a CPA by practice. Mm-hmm. So the financial element is somewhat intuitive there. But really also my mother working part-time once we were in school and really instilling a strong work ethic on myself and my sisters. So I did fairly well in school academically, but they were also very supportive of that and fostered that sort of dynamic.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, kudos and thanks to your parents. Those I always enjoy hearing that type of story. All right. So now let's fast forward to today. You are a wealth manager. You shared with me right before we went on that you started in the business in 2008, which is when the world fell apart. And so, what was it like, starting in this business during that time? And then growing, because in hindsight, you just had to get to March 2010, right? So that's when things started turning around a little bit. So what was that first year and a half, 2 years like for you when you started your business? And I ask Think Community because right now, studies show that 4 million people left their jobs in April for maybe a different job, a better job, a different opportunity, starting their own company, starting their own franchise, whatever that may be. And so I think people can kind of take some best practices and a mindset from how you did it.
Right. So I started in September of 2008, was right at the heart of the
and that was the hard. That was the yeah.
And I said to you a few minutes ago before we went on air, I said if you can survive that environment as a financial advisor, you'll thrive in most other environments. And really, you're trying to weather the storm, both from a practice management standpoint, which at that stage I didn't really have clients initially. And so that was more kind of building out and doing a lot of networking and trying to generate conversations with people, many of whom were friends or family or former colleagues and classmates of mine from graduate school. But the expectations were somewhat limited at that point. I think it was, ironically enough, an opportune time to enter the space because it was all upside from there. And certainly we didn't know that March 2010 was going to be the bottoming, and that's all we had to weather. But those first 6 months were certainly treacherous. But it got easier. And I think people, kind of just weathered from the whole financial crisis. If they kept their job, they were in a much more advantageous position than others. But they were very much forward looking, and then the market had a pretty resilient bounce. And hopefully the clients that I worked with, I was able to keep them engaged, keep them invested. Some people, for emotional reasons or whatnot, perhaps were spooked and wanted to be on the sidelines, and they probably, are regretting that today. But for the most part, I'm pretty confident I can instill that confidence on clients.
Yeah.
Certainly more so today than I could in 2008 when the sky was falling. But you learn a lot about the psychology of investing, people's emotions, and trying to help them stay out of their own way when they want to be their own worst enemy.
Yeah. How do you do that? I mean, that I think is applicable into any business, right? I always say business is easy, people make it difficult, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the emotions that we as individuals and the individuals bring to the table, and then how do we kind of problem solve out of that?
Yeah.
And so how do you find yourself, because you're in the business where, it's one of the most important things next to health and family, their money situation, which is really, really a serious matter. And so how do you manage emotions as a business owner, as a wealth manager, and just as a human being?
Yeah, $64,000 question, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to NYU for graduate school. I have an MBA in finance, and I often joke with people and say I would have almost been better off getting a master's in psychology.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more relevant to what I do. Quite honestly, the investment management, a lot of it's math, a lot of it is pretty straightforward. But when people get in the way of themselves and they want to chase markets that are irrational, or they want to park their money after the damage is done, usually I have to kind of put them to a decision and say, listen, I'm in charge of your funds here. I have a fiduciary responsibility, and here's my pedigree from an education and experience standpoint. If there's a breakdown in trust, perhaps you'd feel more comfortable doing it yourself, but I'm not going to help you fail. And so you really kind of have to have a come to Jesus moment with certain clients in those situations. That being said, I do a lot of due diligence in making recommendations for clients, and in many cases, I'll put my own money into the same investments that I make recommendations on, assuming that they're suitable for the client's risk tolerance and age. And so a lot of times, that's all they need to really hear is, okay, he's not trying to lose his own money, and so if he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's competent and experienced, then usually that puts their mind at ease. And if it doesn't, maybe it's not the right client engagement, and I have to, suggest that they, consider another situation.
Yeah,
it's pretty rare to have that happen, though.
Yeah, but what you're talking about is being in alignment with your client who walks in the door, and I think educating ourselves in this case maybe on money, but also coming in ready to ask the wealth manager that anybody's talking to questions to make sure it's a two-way conversation, making sure we're in alignment. And I think as a business owner, as a salesperson, when you're both, being able to say no because something's out of alignment is really, really hard. So I appreciate you bringing up that topic, and I think for many it doesn't happen often, but I think we always need to listen to our gut if something is out of alignment. So kudos. I think that's great. Yep. Tell everybody before you go into a quick speed round, Patrick, who your ideal clients are.
So, historically, when you first get started, you don't have the luxury of picking and choosing, right? You kind of take whomever is willing to work with you. But as my practice has evolved and our AUM has grown, and I have staff that helps me, I am much more selective, John. And as you pointed out a moment ago, it's absolutely true. Clients are interviewing me and they're evaluating whether they want to work with me as an advisor, and I'm doing the same with them, right? And so it's not necessarily the client that has the most money to invest with me,
right?
But it's the folks that are, coachable. They listen to what you have to say. They have trust in you. They're not battling you every step of the way. And ideally, if you do a good job for them, they're also a good spokesperson for you, because my practice is largely referral based, and that's how I develop new client relationships. So really, it's a combination. Sure, you have to meet a certain minimum investable assets, because I have to do portfolio diversification and risk management. But in terms of the characteristics I look for in a client is, are they open-minded? Do they trust you? Are they outspoken advocates for you when you do a good job?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that. I love that. All right. You ready for a quick speed round, Patrick?
Fire away.
All right. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
I think it's definitely be passionate about what you do for a career. And we opened the segment talking about how people pursue money. And sure, it's great to have wealth and to be able to have the luxury of doing different things. But if you don't enjoy what you do for a career, you're going to kind of just dread waking up on Monday morning or Sunday night knowing you have to go into the office. I really enjoy what I do now. I can't always say that was the case, but I look forward to coming into work on Monday.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I love what I do. I've always walked towards fulfillment. One of my favorite quotes by Tony Robbins: "Success without fulfillment equals failure." And I think passion and fulfillment are, I think they kind of intertwine, but so important. Favorite book and why?
My favorite book. So I'd say probably. So give me two. Okay.
You can have two.
Born to Run, which is about ultra marathoners. I'm a big runner. You can probably see in the background some of the marathon medals. So that's a huge passion of mine. And so that's kind of an obvious one. And I also like the book Bringing Down the House, which is about a bunch of Harvard students, or I should say MIT students, that took down Vegas by counting cards and blackjack. So
that's fun. That's something I
use your brain to do something creative, and I like the story there.
Yeah, I love that. I've interviewed a couple triathletes, Olympians, long distance runners. I did a marathon when I was 25. I'm 49. I don't think I could ever do one again. I think my body's still a little sore from it. But one thing you've learned about discipline as from being a marathon runner.
A great question, and I am very disciplined about it. I've kind of averaged, obviously pre-COVID, 2 or 3 a year, and I'm actually running 2 back-to-back in October, Chicago and Boston, on back-to-back days. So yeah, it's just a lifestyle, and it's about sticking to a plan, being disciplined about it, but also evaluating when something's not right. If you get injured or just not feeling well, you have to be somewhat flexible, and that's true of a financial plan as well, or an investment strategy. Not everything is going to go according to plan, and you have to be able to adapt and adjust. And so from a passion standpoint, as a runner, first of all, I've met a lot of friends and a lot of training partners that have become very good friends. I thrive off of that high, that natural high, so to speak.
Yeah.
But really kind of having the discipline to pursue goals in my life, and there's nothing more gratifying than when you achieve one.
Yeah, I love that. I agree. Define yourself in one word.
Passionate.
Yeah. All right, good. That seems to be a go-to. Last question, or maybe one more. Finish this sentence. One thing that everybody who has not called a wealth advisor, but they've been telling themselves for the last 1, 2, 3+ years they need to, should do is
start now, because there's no procrastination that's going to help your situation.
Yeah.
So evaluate a handful of candidates, interview all of them, and settle on someone that you trust. And they should be aligned with your interests and your goals. But there's no reason to procrastinate. It's only going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah. Amen. Tell people again who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you, Patrick.
Yeah, so high net worth individuals predominantly. We have a firm minimum of 250,000 in investable assets. We make exceptions in certain cases. We do have a fair number of younger clients as well, Gen X and millennials. That's where the wealth is going, right? There's going to be a huge transfer of wealth, and so we're not against working with younger clients and helping them kind of manage that wealth and navigate around taxes. So, in terms of an age bracket, we're somewhat agnostic there, but we're looking for people that put their faith in us, stick to the plan, and ideally are advocates for us when we do a good job.
I love it. A couple of final thoughts. I love, what you talk. I love everything that you talked about, but I loved what you talked about: sacrifice of your family and what you learned from that, the work ethic that you took from it, and the importance of being passionate, which is a theme that kept on coming up, and also the importance of planning and discipline. So I appreciate you being on the show and taking time, Patrick. Think community. If Patrick can help you, please reach out to him. Patrick, thanks, man. Appreciate all your time, and Think Community, thank you for yours. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, John. Real pleasure.